My name's David Clough. I'm Professor of Theological Ethics at the University of Chester. I work in Christian theology and ethics, and for the last 10 years or so I've been interested in animals in Christian theology and ethics. So I'm primarily interested in the implications of Christian faith commitments for how Christians think and act towards animals. From a Christian theological understanding, I understand myself as a creature. And that means I'm a creature among creatures. And so animals to me are my fellow creatures of God, present in a Christian faith tradition as beings created by God and living sustained by God and to be redeemed by God. And so that fundamental insight of seeing ourselves as humans as alongside fellow creatures seems to me to be a really fundamental part of good Christian thinking. So one key question is, do animals matter in a Christian understanding of the world? So some people come into this field with the idea that Christian faith means an anthropocentric view of the universe. God is concerned with promoting human interests. People often have come in with the belief that God made everything for the sake of human beings. So for me, one fundamental question is to discuss a theocentric view of Christian faith, so a God-centered way of understanding things. That means that God might be significantly concerned with human interests, but God is in a Christian context, is the God of all creatures, and I'm really keen to help Christians notice biblical passages and theological traditions which affirm God as the God who is concerned with the well-being of all creatures rather than just the single species Homo sapiens. So some of the most interesting stuff that's going on at the moment is Christian theologies that are engaging animals questions, but in dialogue with other really pressing issues. So one really key question for the field at large is, what's the relationship of Christian theology to questions of racism and white supremacy? And one of the really interesting parts of engaging with Christian animal stuff at the moment is to find that there's really interesting congruence and common ground and coalitions of interest around engaging well with questions of race and theology, and engaging well with questions of animals. So a fundamental question about recognizing ourselves as creatures among creatures rather than primarily in relation to a human-animal binary is a really interesting site there. And those questions turn out to be really interestingly related to questions of gender and sexuality. Lots of cutting-edge theological questions where pushing the animal question turns out to be really productive. One of the really energizing parts of this weekend for me is to put my work on the map of a sort of wider landscape of animal studies work, and to hear the range of perspectives that are brought when you start to be in conversation with legal scholars and philosophers and sociologists and ethnographers and so on. And what I find really exciting about that is I find unexpected coalitions of interest and congruences. So I also think it might be really interesting to look at the possibility of engaging in new interdisciplinary projects together on the basis of those kinds of common interests too. So I'm particularly interested to hear about the research around the table that some beneficial, well-meaning attempts at regulation in relation to our understanding of animals turns out to have negative side effects, providing false justifications for our treatment of animals. And I want to learn from that to try and be more self-aware and self-critical about whether any of the policy proposals that I see to be ones that I want to commend might turn out themselves to be problematic in any respect. So that's one lesson that I'll take. The other key theme that is actually an area I've been moving into, but will do so in a way that's different on the basis of the conversations we've had, is to learn about the different ways in which people are engaging intersectionally with animals in a wider context. So people around the table have been engaging in thinking about theories of punishment and human problems with prisons, for example, in dialogue with the ethics of animal captivity. Have been thinking about decolonialization as a project and how animals fit into that. Have been thinking about anti-blackness and race as an issue. And I'm going to go away from this weekend with a whole range of questions much more clearly in focus as a result. So I'm convinced that our use of other animals for food is a key moral priority. And so the most important focus of my work going forward is to trying to find ways of engaging at the interface between academic research and Christian communities to try and be the catalyst for really good critical thinking about our practice in relation to other animals for food. So I'm already working on a project, Research Council project funded in the UK on Christian ethics of farmed animal welfare in partnership with UK churches, and I'm interested in the possibility of a new project that would be out of a US focus, engaging US churches in the very different context of US farmed animal welfare.